How I gained 40 pounds of muscle, reintegrated special forces like discipline, and skyrocketed my self confidence in 120 days. In this video, I'm going to show you guys and take you through the process that I call Operation Alpha that got me to be in the position that I am today, going from at my lowest point of my life and getting to the absolute best shape that I've ever been in. All right, so let's get started. So I left the United States Army Special Forces at my lowest point ever. I was 27 years old. I was lacking self-confidence. My structure was absolutely just all out of whack. Everything that I have implemented in my life prior and while I was on a Special Forces team on that journey, I completely lost. And what led me into that point was an injury. And this injury caused me to need about 3 surgeries, major surgeries within 6 months. And I had ankle surgery, I had hip surgery, and then I had 3 screws put in my back. At that moment, in my eyes, I was in the best shape of my entire life. I had worked for 10 plus years to get to this moment of being on a Special Forces team, being a Green Beret, and I lost all of it. I was at around 235 pounds steady. I was able to run. I was able to lift a lot of weight, and I was able to shoot, move, and communicate at the best of my possible ability. And when I got injured, I completely took a 180. I started feeling sorry for myself, and I went from 235 pounds to about 185 pounds. Not eating, not sleeping, just super depressed, stressed out. I felt like I had lost everything that I had worked towards and didn't know how I was going to get out of that big hole. And so I fell into the trap of, making up all these excuses on why I couldn't go do something, playing this victim mentality that got me absolutely nowhere. And started going through, I got out, and then a month later, I got out of the Army, and a month later I was going through a divorce. And that divorce put me into an even deeper hole. I lost my kids, I lost my family. I was in this empty house now where I was used to having my kids around, running around, screaming, playing all the time, and found myself just lost in this house all alone and trying to figure out what I was going to do to continue to make it through the day. And so I started this rebuilding phase. I analyzed everything that I did in the past 10 years to get me to be at an elite level in the military. And I was like, I need to implement those things. I need to find myself again. And I need to start doing the things that I was doing before that put me on the path to get to where you guys can see here. I was running like a boss. I was running like a dog. I was lifting like crazy weight. I was just at the peak performance in my eyes of where I was going to be at in my life. And once I started to bring that structure back into my life that I'm going to go through in this video, I started drying the concrete. And what I mean by that is when you're laying down your foundation, that concrete is wet. You don't want to mess with it. You want to just stick to it, let it do its thing, and eventually that concrete that's wet, it'll dry, and that will be your base foundation. And I needed to make sure that my routine was on lock, and to make sure that I got rid of all the bad habits and everything that I was doing on a daily basis within 24 hours, that it was setting me up to win. This program and this coaching group, this community that we're going to build is for a specific person. I'm going to be straight up with you and be completely transparent. It's not for everybody. But if you need to be a better role model for your partner, your spouse, children, if you have kids, those around you, your close friends, your family, then this is 100% for you. If you are someone that understands that this is simple, but it's not easy, and you understand that it takes extreme discipline and sacrifice, this is going to be a perfect program for you, and you're definitely going to want to be a part of it. If you inside, you know that you have the drive, you know that you have the determination, you know that you are willing to put in the work, but you lack the direction to actuate it, and it feels like you're going around in circles, and this is for you. If you aspire to do better, just be overall just a better person, and you want to achieve better, and you just currently don't know how to do it. Like, you don't have a plan, you don't have somebody to point you in the right direction and get you on the right path, and this program is for you. And the last thing is, if you feel like you're currently performing to maybe 60% of your ability and your true potential, then this is for you. We're going to get you from 60 to 100%. Who this is not for. All right, if you're looking for just an overnight transformation program, I'm not the person for you. In my opinion, there is no overnight transformation. All that stuff is bogus, and you just get sucked into the trap. And I've been there before too. I've had a coach who promised me all these things, and I fell right into the trap because I was looking for the quick fix. And to be honest with you, man, there is no quick fix. If you're somebody that just can't adapt, you think that you know absolutely everything, and you don't want to overcome and change your habits and your routines to become a better person, this is definitely not for you. If you're wanting to change without accepting that it requires you to change, nothing's going to change. All right. It's very simple. If you're not willing to be coachable, if you're not willing to take advice and take some criticism, then this program's not going to be for you. If you make excuses for every little thing that you do and every little thing that happens in your life, and all you do is just be this victim person who just can't stop, won't take responsibility for anything, and just always wants to blame it on something or somebody else, then we're not going to work very well together. Biggest thing that I see is that a lot of people put out there that you have to literally be on this 24-hour grind every single day. And with that, you miss a lot of stuff. You miss a lot of the important things, and especially for those of you that have kids and things like that, a lot of these coaches want you to absolutely, fill up your whole entire 24 hours in a day to where you don't have any white space to actually enjoy the things that matter the most in life, and that's being around your family. I don't live my days on a time clock or with stress of wasting my life away anymore. That's what I was doing before. I was just wasting my time. I'm a lot more present with my family when I am with them, which in my opinion is the most important thing. I can't be sitting here thinking and stressing out about all this external stuff when my main responsibility and what my kids need is for me to be present and with them at that time. I still have my cheat meals or my sleep-in days. I have vacation. I go on vacations. I have free time. That's the thing, is that once you build out a solid structure that you personally can stick to, that we're going to find together and we're going to mold together, then this is when you can start having those cheat meals. All right. You're not going to completely fail by sleeping in one day out of the week or one day every 2 weeks. You're going to have the time to go on vacations and take and make those memories with your family. And the biggest thing is you're going to have white space. You're going to have free time. And the biggest thing is just making sure that we have that solid structure in order for you to be able to do that type of stuff. We're going to be establishing the discipline and consistency it takes, and that will allow you to have more freedom than you've ever had before. You don't have to fill up your day with task after task after task after task just to be successful and be, an example to follow. You can win 90% of the days out of the year and still look and feel the way that you want. You do not expect to be 100% perfect, because what that does is if you have one bad day, you have one loss, or that first loss of the year or on your journey, you're going to be like, well, I'm not 100% anymore, so what's the point of this? And that's just not true, man. Nobody in this life is perfect. But I'm here to tell you that if you, 9 times out of 10, 90% of the year, you're on your stuff, you're on your schedule, your routine is in check, you're staying consistent with your training, your nutrition, your recovery, you're going to win, no doubt. And instead of being the guy that misses everything, you're going to be the dude that makes it to everything. These are a couple things that I just think that you guys should know. There's no such thing as an easy day. It's not going to be easy ever, but I promise you that it will be worth it. There's nothing in my life that I've built that's worth anything that I can look back and be like, oh yeah, that was easy. When I was going through Ranger School, that was not easy. It took me a long time. Going through the Special Forces pipeline, it's 2.5 years minimum. It was not easy, but it was definitely worth it. The way that you show up for your team, family, or kids, that's what we're working towards. I want you to be able to show up for your team, your family, and or your kids to the best of your ability. I want them to see the change, and I want them to feel the love that you can provide to them. And that requires you to take care of business on your end so that you can make the time and have the time to be with your family. The way you see yourself in the mirror and walk around town like a different man is going to be huge. All right, I know what it looks like, and I know what it feels like to look in the mirror and not be happy with what you're seeing. I wasn't happy with what I was seeing for years. As I was getting out of the military and as I was transitioning from a special operations community into the civilian world, and I was telling you guys, I lost myself. Every morning when I would look in the mirror, I was just disgusted. I did not like the person that I was seeing in the mirror, and I didn't like the person that I was turning into, which I knew I had to change and get back to my roots. The way you're respected by those around you from leading by example is going to be huge. All right, people are going to start looking at you as a leader. They're going to see you doing the right thing and being like, damn, that's the dude that I want to follow. And that's the type of person that I want to be like. In my opinion, the only way to be a leader is to lead by example. Anybody can, yell and scream and shout out all these demands, but somebody that is quiet, professional, and leads by example with his actions and not his words is the person that we're going to turn you into. All right, you're going to be the dad, husband, or friend that people can always rely on. And they're going to know that based off of all the actions that you take, leading by example, doing the right thing, and constantly showing people who you really are. And if you want to be that person, I can show you exactly what I did that is you can completely transfer all of this knowledge over. And if somebody takes and runs with it and sticks to the plan, stays consistent, then they can be that person. I'm going to show you exactly how to get your daily regimen in check. It doesn't have to be where you journal for an hour, you ice bath for an hour, you sit in the sauna for an hour. All right, that's 3 hours out of the day right there that, instead of doing that, we could be working, we could be building. All right, whether you're building a business, whether you're strictly here for personal training, we're building, and we're building brick by brick to get you to be able to follow this daily regimen and stay consistent on a daily basis in order for you to just continue to improve day by day. All right, I'm going to show you how to build on lean muscle without doing strictly bodybuilding style workouts. You do not have to just go in there and consistently chase the arm pump. You don't always have to go in there and just, do squats and leg extensions. Like, there is other ways that I have tested and trialed myself to put on lean muscle without just strictly sticking to a bodybuilding diet and training regimen. I'm going to show you the training and nutrition you need to reach your full potential based off of what you tell me that you want to do. If you want to build lean muscle, I'm going to show you how. If you want to lose 15, 20 pounds, I'm going to show you how. But in a healthy way, not any of these crazy diets where we just cut everything out. We're going to slowly ease our way into a proper nutrition regimen and a proper training regimen to get you to feel and look the way that you want to. I'm going to show you what principles and skills that I learned to become a member of the special operations community. And I'm going to share those with you because, in my opinion, special operations is one of the most dangerous jobs in the entire world. And if you don't have the skills, the discipline, and the consistency to continue to be better, then you're going to lose. You're probably going to get kicked out of that community real quick. So I'm going to show you guys and tell you exactly what I did to get to a very, very high level in the military. In case you don't know me, my name is Spencer Lewis, and here's a brief backstory about how I got here. I joined the Army at 19 years old. Prior to that, I played basketball, football, and baseball. I was an all-state wide receiver in high school, and I had a chance to go play for Nebraska Huskers in football. But me being that dumb 18-year-old, I screwed all of that up. I got into a really bad friend group, and I just got sucked into this very, very dark place where essentially I look back and I was like, man, I'm screwing up my life. And even though I was playing football, the things that I was doing on the outside and outside of football, I did not care about whatsoever at all. I didn't care about school. I was constantly partying. And so I knew I needed to change my life and get my life on track. And so I joined the Army at 19 years old with an 11 X-ray contract, which is just strictly infantry. I wasn't even smart enough to be able to get an option 40 contract, which is going into Ranger Regiment. I wasn't smart enough, and my scores for my ASVAB wasn't good enough to be able to get an 18 X-ray contract, which is going from civilian life straight into Special Forces selection and that whole pipeline. I had to go to a separate class once I got in the Army. I went through basic training, I went to airborne school, and then I found myself at 82nd Airborne at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. That is when I was able to take a month off of work and go to this ASVAB study class just in order for me to get the proper score, in order for me to level up. And so while I was at the 82nd Airborne, one of my leadership came in and they asked who wants to go to Ranger School. And I simply raised my hand, and then I looked around and nobody else wanted to do it. And that boggled my mind. I was like, why does nobody want to take on the challenge and go to this school that everybody says is the absolute hardest school? Why wouldn't you want to do that? Well, I raised my hand to go do it. And at 20 years old, I graduated Army Ranger School, known to be one of the hardest courses in the Army. And I was walking around Fort Bragg, North Carolina with my Airborne and my Ranger tab at 20 years old. And that was back in October of 2015. Just a year later, when I got back to my unit, I was like, okay, I need more. I don't want to just come back to this regular unit. I want to level up. I want to continue to strive for the next level. What could I do? There was two options for me. I could go to Ranger Assessment Selection Process, RASP, to go into Ranger Regiment, and that was about a 7 to 8 week course or selection process. Or option B was to go through the SFAS, which is Special Forces Assessment Selection, which is 21 days. And if you get selected there, you go on to be a student in the Special Forces Qualification course, and that is a minimum of 2 years of training. So I ultimately decided to take on the Special Forces Assessment Selection. After 21 days, I got selected. This was back in October 2016, so just a year after graduating Ranger School. I went to selection and I got selected, and I finished the Special Forces Qualification course at 23 years old. I was on a team from 23 years old till I was 27 years old when I had those injuries and had to get those surgeries, and ultimately got medically retired from the military. That's when I started my own business called Alpha Country Training and Nutrition. I was 27 years old, had no prior business experience. The only thing that I had was, as far as business-wise, was the things that I saw in the Army and how business was conducted there. And prior to that, when I was selling weed as a teenager. All right, that was the only business that I knew, and I got out just full steam ahead. I was fully committed to my business, and within 3 years, I built Alpha Country Training and Nutrition from zero to being in my house, having nothing, to 3 years later, breaking $1 million in revenue. We did $1.2 million in revenue the third year. So along with starting that business is when I started to lose everything. I got Army, so I was completely off the train of the special operations community. I rolled right into a divorce, which was one of the hardest things that I've been through in my entire life, because having kids, the child custody part can really, really take a toll on not just me, but my family as well. Friends and family started turning on me because of who I was becoming. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to be around anybody. I felt like my life was just completely going down the drain, and I was at complete rock bottom, so I thought. Then I started to look at myself in the mirror, and I demanded these changes that I was telling you guys about. I started to re-implement what I learned in the structure that I built for myself in the special operations community, and I started implementing that into my daily life, and I started to see the changes very, very quick. So within 2 years, this should be 3 years. Within 3 years, my company went from 0 to $1 million. I was in the best shape of my entire life and accomplishing goals I never thought I could have. All right, that's just a little bit of background on me. So, Operation Alpha is my system I built through my own trial and error by building the baddest version of myself, losing it all, and then rebuilding it from scratch using the lessons I learned as a special operator or a Green Beret. And I've decided to break it all down for you for free. This is what I looked like after those surgeries. 185 pounds, just absolutely skin and bones. I couldn't walk for about 5 or 6 weeks, and I just lost everything. You can see it in my eyes. And 6 months later, this picture on the right here is what, after implementing everything that I used to do to become a badass special operator, I implemented those into my life, and I really started taking control of my life to get to the person that you see on the right. All right, there's 4 stages in Operation Alpha. Stage 1, dropping all vices that are keeping me in a weaker state. All right, I was constantly sitting there on Instagram just scrolling. I was on social media just absolutely looking at nothing that was contributing to success in my life. I was just sitting around watching Netflix, pretty much just wasting the days away instead of working on myself and my personal development in order to get me back on track. And I started building the foundational habits that I knew that I had already trialed and errored of a high achiever, and I started implementing them back into my life. And that's what I'm going to teach you. All right, this takes time though. You need to understand that. Like I said, this is not an overnight success. It's not an overnight transformation program to where, a week later you're going to be down 20 pounds or gain 10 pounds of lean muscle, and now you all of a sudden go from having a no pack to a 6-pack. That's silly. All right, stage 2 is reverting to old habits that previously got me to be the high level achiever that I had been before. All right, so after months, almost years of just wasting my time and being this victim, I started to implement the things that I was doing to get to that high level, like waking up early, for example. Just waking up early was setting myself apart from everybody else that was sleeping in. Waking up at 4 o'clock, 4:30, and getting to the gym and getting my training done first thing in the morning, that set myself apart from somebody that rolls out of bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock, comes into work, and then, 6 or 7 hours later, if they have the time, they'll go train. Or more than likely, they'll be like, no, I'm too tired. I'll wake up tomorrow and do it. And to me, that's just nonsense. That's not how you win. You have to prioritize yourself and how you're going to better yourself first thing in the morning. All right, stage 3 is creating new habits that will get me to the new person that I aspire to be. All right, I knew that, okay, once I got my structure in line and I had my daily routine in lock, I was, for months on months, I needed something more, and I needed to challenge myself more, because I knew that this wasn't my peak performance. This wasn't the peak best version of Spencer that he could be. And so what was I going to do to get to that next level? Which brings me into stage 4. It was setting new big goals for myself. These goals needed to be things I'd never done before. To be who I'd never been, I needed to do things I'd never done before. So I started, getting into ultra marathons, because I saw how it takes a disciplined person to be able to run 50K, 50 miles, 100 miles. And I knew that if I started doing this thing that I told myself that I hated running, and that I would never enjoy it. I'm just not a good runner. It's not for me. My body, I'm too big to run. All these excuses. Once I put those to the side and shoved those in a closet, and I was like open to new opportunities and new challenges, that's when I really started to see major growth in my life. Not just personally, but it started to rub off on the people around me. And it started to rub off into my business and the success with that. And just setting these new challenges to push myself to a whole nother level is what got me to be the person that I've always, wanted to become. So stage 1, dropping all vices that are keeping me in a weaker state. Cutting out all the bullshit food. You go through your pantry right now and you get rid of all the snacks, all the treats that you right before bedtime, you're like, I'm hungry a little bit, so let me dive in and let me get some of that. And anything negative that was in my house, I got rid of. All right, I signed out of Netflix. I signed out of Hulu. I set a timer on my phone to make sure that I wasn't sitting on Instagram or social media all day long, in order to give me a cue. Hey, you're spending too much time on your phone. You need to get off and go do something productive. A huge thing that I didn't realize was so important was the nutrition aspect. When I was younger, I was able to just go do these things, and sometimes I wouldn't even eat but one meal a day. And because I was young, I was able to do that. But as I got older, the nutrition portion was the determining factor of whether or not I was going to either go backwards, stand still, or go forward and reach things that, I wanted to. I always knew that I could, but the nutrition part was the biggest thing. If I was bad on nutrition and I was off my regimen, then I paid for it when it came to training. And so I started to meal prep, and that's when I really started to see the success in the nutrition space, is when I started to get ahead of the game. Instead of, thinking that I'm going to cook all my meals every single day, I started to, every Sunday, I'm going to have my meals ready for the week. And that had me on a structure, it had me on a schedule to where I wasn't going off course because I didn't have meals ready to go. Not going to do useless things like partying to take me away from reality, or staying on social media, just mindlessly scrolling. All right, I realized that there's no reason for me to be going out, partying, having drinks with the boys, staying out until 3 or 4 in the morning, doing just irresponsible things. That was not getting me to the person that I wanted to become. And I had to get rid of all that stuff. Being intentional with every minute of my day, from an early wake up time to a decent bedtime, which required planning the night before. So just as I was talking about, waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, getting to the gym by 5, being done with my workout by 7, having 2 hours before I needed to even show up to work, that was setting myself, I was already getting ahead of everybody. By the time I was done with my workouts in the morning, I had already won that task for the day. People were just rolling out of bed. And the biggest thing is that in order to get the proper sleep, you have, especially if you're going to be waking up early, you have to get to bed at a decent time. Waking up that early, by the time 8:30, 9 o'clock rolls around, you will be tired because you would have just been building yourself up that entire day. So once you get home, once you get to 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, you're going to be tired, especially when you know that you're going to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning again. I started reading, which I absolutely despised reading. I thought just reading was the silliest thing. I was like, what is the point of reading these books? But what I realized is that there were so many hidden gems in those books and so much knowledge that I could gain from reading those books that I started implementing reading a personal development book every morning for at least 10 pages. Later on, I upped that page count to about 20 pages a day. Stage 2, reverting to old habits that previously got me to be the high-level achiever that I had been before. Mainly speaking about getting these habits back that I developed and I was implementing into my life in order to become a Green Beret at 23 years old. I started waking up at 4 a.m. every morning to build my routine. I knew that this worked. I even when I was around these elite individuals, these high-level people that had been to combat, 10 or 12 times, a lot of them weren't prioritizing themselves first thing in the morning. And so I knew that I could set myself apart by waking up and continue to wake up at 4 a.m. every morning and get to the gym, get my tasks done prior to anybody even, getting out of bed. Meal prepping and tracking my water. Water is one of the biggest mistakes that people make, is that they don't fuel themselves enough with not only food but liquids. Having a gallon a day is essential. That should be the very minimum, especially if you're training, sometimes doing 2-a-days. You need to be staying on top of hydration. All right, that's one thing that your body will just completely give up on you, especially if your hydration and nutrition is off track. I stayed on top of supplementation every single day. When I got out my company, I started formulating my own supplements because I saw that the products that I wanted to take for myself were just not out there. The ingredients and the formulas that I wanted in a supplement, a pre-workout, post-workout, health and wellness supplements that I take every day, like vitamins, joint supports, reds and green superfoods, I did not see that product that I wanted to have in my life. So I created it and I started it in my own business. Getting all the essential personal work I needed to get done in order to spend more time with my kids. This was huge. This relates to the waking up at 4 a.m. and getting after it and going to get the things that you need to get done prior to my kids even waking up. Especially on weekends when I want to spend time with my kids. I want to take them and do stuff. And if I, wake up at 9 o'clock and, all right, I'm going to the gym at 10, not getting done until 12, and then, oh, there's some things I need to catch up today. I'm never actually making that white space and that time in order to be free and enjoy and be present with my kids. That was huge for me. With you getting yourself into routine, what I saw with my kids is that they started to pick up how disciplined I was being, and it started to rub off on them. They started to be interested in what I was doing for working out, why I was doing the things like meal prepping and things like that, what supplements I was taking. And so they started to get interested. And so I know that by the time they, are in their teenage years, they're going to have seen somebody that's disciplined and somebody that was leading by example. And more than likely, I mean, they're not there yet, but I feel like they're going to take that example that I set for them and they're going to apply it to their life. Stage 3, creating new habits that would get me to the new person I aspire to be. All right, so I continued to wake up at 4 a.m. every morning to do strength workouts 5 times a week, and then doing a second workout for endurance and conditioning. I have a very, very strict schedule that I stick to nowadays in order to accomplish the next goal that I'm trying to achieve. Started going from reading 10 pages a day to, like I was saying before, 20 pages a day. Okay, once you build this, we're not jumping into this, 20 pages a day or 50 pages a day. We're slowly creeping up into it. So starting out with 10 pages a day, you realize that, after a month of doing it, you're cruising through those 10 pages within 10, 15 minutes. And it's like, okay, how can I gain more knowledge and get more of these experiences and these lessons that I'm reading? Let's bump it up to 20 pages a day, okay, and see how well we can retain that knowledge. I started becoming closer to God and exploring that relationship that I've never put any effort into. I was that dude that I never went to church. I was not interested in being religious and in building that relationship and that friendship with God. I was not about that. And it took me going into this just very deep, dark place, the lowest part of my life, to open up to that opportunity and want to do something that I had never done before, which was build a relationship with God. I started listening to podcasts instead of music to gain more knowledge on skills. And usually anytime I was in the car, I'd be listening to music. I'd be driving to the gym, listening to music, driving to work, listening to music. And I changed that up because it was like I was getting a lot of knowledge and I was gaining a lot of stuff for reading these books. But is there another form that I could plug into my life and my routine that will continually help me with personal development and teaching me these skills that I want to learn? And so I started finding these podcasts that piqued my interest on what topics they were covering and things like that. And I started listening to those anytime I was in the car. I started listening to those on my runs and just continuously, constantly gaining knowledge and always just getting better and better by listening to these skills and these lessons that these, very, very successful, high-level people were putting out. Instead of watching TV, I watch YouTube videos of things that I wanted to experience myself from people that have done it. That is the biggest thing. I do not listen and I do not watch anything from somebody that has not built or is not doing what I want to do. And so I found that if I want to achieve these things, I want to learn from those people that have done it, that been there, done that. And a lot of these people make YouTube videos. And so instead of watching this Netflix series for no apparent reason, I started watching educational videos, YouTube videos on knowledge transfer and all these things of these challenges that I wanted to do. I wanted to learn from those people instead of sitting there wasting my time on something just useless. Stage 4, setting new big goals for myself. These goals needed to be things that I'd never done before. To be who I'd never been, I needed to do things I'd never done. So this year in January, I ran my first 50-mile ultra marathon. That was very, very scary. All right, the longest that I had ever ran was a half marathon, and I had only done like 2 of those. And I knew that jumping from like low mileage, 13.1 miles to, all right, you're going to go run 50 miles in one day. That was huge. It was very, very scary for me. And I completed that and I learned so much about myself and how far that I can actually push myself versus, looking at it and analyzing it and making up all these excuses on how I wasn't going to be able to accomplish that. Instead, I just signed myself up and I went and did it. A couple months later, I signed up for a 50K ultra in the mountains of Colorado, which was a whole new experience for me. Going from 500 feet of elevation up to 10,000 feet, or not 500, 5,000 feet up to 10,000 feet. That showed me so much about my body that it was mind-blowing to see how just this, something that I had never done before, can teach me so much. I started praying daily instead of just putting God as a priority on Sundays. All right, I made it a priority to build that relationship and continuously work on that friendship with God, not just one day a week. I started doing it every single day, and I started to learn more and more about the story and what he's done for us, and how that can be implemented into my life. And it changed me big time. I set a goal to hit $1 million in revenue for my company within 1 year. So back in 2022, the new year just hit, and I was like, you know what, we just did over 500,000 in revenue this year. I want to really challenge myself, and I want to just go all in and see by the end of the year, by next year, looking back, can I break $1 million in revenue? And so I just put my head down. I went to work every single day. I stayed consistent. I stayed disciplined on my routine, everything that I needed to do for myself personally, and then everything I needed to do for business. And eventually we hit that goal 365 days later. This year was a big year for me, 2023. I moved my business into its own warehouse. So before, I was operating out of my house. I had 3 bedrooms filled of inventory. I had my garage filled with inventory. I had a 28-foot trailer filled with inventory, and I had 3 10 by 30 foot storage units filled with inventory. I was doing everything out of my house. And because of the personal stuff that I was going through with the child custody and the divorce, I had to move my business from Florida to North Carolina. All right, another bump in the road to building this massive company and having to move it from Florida up to North Carolina and figure out, all right, where am I going to put this thing in order for me to be closer to my kids? So I moved states and I started hiring people for the team. Unfortunately, a lot of the people that I was hiring, it wasn't going very well. And I found myself back to doing everything myself. And I realized that I was hiring people to almost take some time to be able to have like personal time for myself. And I realized that I was just hiring people to just almost take the easy route. That was nonsense. So what I realized is that I needed to hop back in the seat, and I needed to start doing everything to get us even to that next level. So I was building my company all while maintaining strength and conditioning training to accomplish bigger goals like a 100-mile ultra marathon, which in 2025 I will accomplish. And so all these things are all going on at once. Seems like a lot, but in the end, it's not easy, but I know that it's going to be worth it. So my biggest question for you is, are you in for the challenge? All right, this is a process. It's an operation to become an absolute savage. It is impossible to lose when you're getting 1% better every single day. All right, you can't lose that way. We're not talking about changing your life overnight. We're not talking about, getting a 6-pack within 30 days. We're talking about an operation that is going to take time, and it's going to take you to be consistent and disciplined in order to achieve that. It's going to be uncomfortable until you start seeing the results come to light. All right, you're going to feel like nothing's working. You're going to feel like, at one point you're going to get jumps ahead, and then you're going to feel like you're going backwards. Just understand that is part of the process. All right, it's going to be uncomfortable, but you will figure out a way, and you will find what it is that you need to do in order to be comfortable in that uncomfortable. And really, in my opinion, it's realizing that end goal, that end state that you're trying to achieve is worth it. And so this, being uncomfortable, it is worth it. And you find you find your ways to be okay with it, and you find your ways to, long runs, long workouts. You're like, this sucks right now. I really don't want to be here, but I know that this is going to make me a better person because you're focused on the end goal. At the end of the day, I can give you all the answers, but it is and always will be on you to implement these techniques. Okay. If you're not willing to be coached, if you're not willing to do things differently, change your average routine, and you're not going to challenge yourself, then it's not going to work for you. But I'm telling you right now that it really is simple, but it's just not easy. All right, it's a simple structure that you can follow, but it's not an easy one. All right, you're going to get bored, you're going to feel like this is just a waste of time, but you have to be okay with the monotonous task. The daily grind is not something new every single day. It's compounding a routine that turns into something that truly leaves a greater impact on the world and those around you. That's what we're trying to achieve. All right, we're trying to achieve a compounding routine that turns into something that truly leaves a greater impact on the world and those around you. And in my opinion, this all boils down to one thing, and that's leading by example. So if you guys are interested in this coaching, this mentorship program, the link is going to be below for you guys to schedule a call on Calendly. And if there's any questions that you guys have, leave them in the comments. Anything, I'll respond to you guys. And I appreciate you guys watching.